So one thing we have talked about lately is kind of coming up with just a set of metrics that are more general, that can be used across all of our clients. We've worked a little bit with some of our team members to kind of come up with some of these, and we want to start small, but what this will eventually grow into, I think it'll be something useful for all of our clients. And we're just calling it, the working title is Project Matterhorn, so nothing too exciting, but you know, we want to just look at some basic metrics and start bringing these together in a kind of a more standardized way that they can work across any client anywhere, with any system. So, and that's really the big idea. And if anyone has any questions or comments, please, speak up. But that's the big idea is, we all have lots of dashboards, and we build lots of dashboards for everybody, and it seems like we have a lot of different versions of things floating around. So we just thought it would be nice to build something kind of standard, and that's the big idea. And the details are, we're going to start small, and we're going to just start with a single metric. We've just talked about what metric would be interesting to start with, walk that through the process. How do we get the data from system A? How do we get that data from system B? How do we get that data from system C? And how do we make it all kind of make sense, right? The definition can be valid for any system. And so we've kind of talked about this a little bit, and I'll go into a little bit more detail as to what that is. And then we'll also talk about some next steps, and if any of you are interested in participating and having input in that, then we'd certainly welcome that. And that's one of our important aspects, one of the important aspects of this. This is something that we kind of started talking about it when we were at the Open Minds Technology and Informatics Institute. Just a lot of people with whom we visited found that this was an interesting concept, and that it's something that would fill a need out there. We also had a webinar with Dr. John Goman a week or two ago, where we went over some financial reporting, and it sort of got us thinking that we eventually want to get into more detailed things like that, financial reporting, but we thought, let's just start small, and let's just do a single metric and walk it through the process and see how it goes. And we have Dilbert here to provide some insight into our process, right? I need some data from an unreachable guy named Ed. What should I do? Just make up a bunch of data like everyone else does. Everyone else does that. Are you doubting my data? So anyway, no, this will all be very, very, very carefully vetted, but it's interesting how some people think of data. So we talked about, the health and sustainability of any agency is relative to data. It's our most valuable resource now in many ways. And it's only growing in importance and significance. And in partnership with Pinnacle, we can become leaders in best practice with using data to improve performance. And so it's a great opportunity for us to combine our efforts and to have input and bring more value to our data projects. And as we talked about at the beginning, you have a wealth of knowledge, and you find data important, and you put a lot of emphasis on it. And so, we believe that the executive advisory group is a good forum to discuss this issue. So some of the potential metrics, we're going to again focus just on one, but things like client duration, provider duration, making sure that we have those values at our fingertips. Efficiency measures like time to note entry, time to billing process, time to payment received. Being able to track that, look at trends, look at variation in the data, look at deviation from a goal, and be able to track some of these things. And these aren't earth-shattering metrics. It's just we want to kind of go through this and make sure we have things that work across all systems. Financial picture, accounts receivable, monitoring reports that can be accessed frequently to get a better financial picture of your organization. And then we want to be able to make it a little bit flexible, that we can have a rules engine in there. We can look at various targets. If you want to set a target, it can be different for different things for different agencies, and definitions. So we're trying to make it so there's a little bit of a rule set in there that can be customized based on and changed even if conditions warrant that. So just some basic metrics, but I think insightful ones. So again, we wanted to kind of look at a single metric, and so the first one that we're going to be looking at is time to entry. And it means kind of different things to different people, but we're kind of focusing in on this one, and we're gathering information, and we want to talk to you and talk to our partner agencies, and we have a list of things that we want to discuss if you're interested in having that conversation. And this is one that always comes up when we discuss this with John Goman. He was on our call last week. He's one that we've worked with for many years, and he's always big into this one. And so we decided to sort of make this one our focus initially. And so it's this time to entry. How long does it take to get services ready to bill? Okay. And some of the potential measures that we came up with in our brainstorming session were, how long in hours, minutes, seconds, days, come up with some kind of what we were calling a velocity index, that we could distill these values down into a measure that's easily digestible. We want to look at data variance. We feel like for this kind of a measure that's important: average, means, correlations, median, max, min, percentile, be able to look at that variation over time with these kinds of things. So we want to, even though we're just going to focus on one, we want to provide a lot of rich analytics for this one thing. And again, this is just kind of our brainstorming ideas, and we're looking to those of you who are interested in participating to maybe offer some additional advice that might be useful. So those are some of our potential measures. And then of course we want to be able to slice and dice this data by our dimensions. We call our dimensions our nouns, right? Those are the people, places, and things that you can slice and dice by. And the things we came up with: provider, program, location, whole agency, date, client, clinician caseload, any sort of a natural hierarchy in the agency, age, billable status, supervisor, service type, and actually by the service. So, as these dimensions grow, any of these measures, we can slice and dice by these things and create literally unlimited analytic projects from these sorts of things. Any comments or questions from anybody?
Shawn, can you go back to the first one where you're showing the different things that you were planning on measuring?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right here. Where was I? Community capacity. I think one of the things that we look at, and maybe this may be a next step for you all, was just trying to measure that engagement. And I know engagement can be defined a number of different ways, maybe for different agencies, but for example, looking at from an outpatient perspective, did the client come back for a third session, three or more sessions, and trying to see, are folks engaged in treatment as a result of the counselor doing a really good job of engagement, or whatever the case may be. But looking at 3 or more instances could be a measure of engagement versus maybe a counselor who is not able to get their client to come to 3 or more. Maybe they've got a higher turnover of clients or something. We could measure people that way and look at how well they're engaging with their caseload.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Jim. We'll make note of that for sure. Yeah, I think that's an excellent metric.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead,
James. I know another metric that we really always want to try to keep an eye on, especially for clients that are safety issues, is just the frequency of time between. So average time between visits is one that's kind of a harder. You have to. It's a harder metric to get without truly digging in and doing some back end work. But yeah, so the
Excellent.
number of average number of days between visits to make sure that we're seeing them on a regular basis if they're, high risk.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Excellent. Yeah, that's a great one. We'll make note of that one too. Perfect. Any other comments? Excellent. Thank you so much for that. So what we want to do next is we'll send out an email asking about some interest in participating, and it will have a poll in there, and you can respond to that. And then we'll try to get that out here in the next week or so, and then that we're calling it a subcommittee or like a kind of a working group, and anyone who expresses interest, then we'll meet the week of April 5th, and we can start presenting some of our ideas and some of our specifications and getting input from that group. So we hope that as you receive that email that you'll be interested, and or you could nominate somebody from your team who would be interested in working with us on this. And of course, the payback would be that once we have these things and we have them developed for your systems, then you'll get to use these things if you'd like, and you'll have them available to you. So those would be kind of the initial next steps. And we would look forward to your participation and any input you might have.